We're going to take a look at how to use the Azure File Service to access shares that are stored in Azure. What I have here is a storage account. It's already set up. Nothing special about this storage account. Pretty basic. So I go into the storage account and I go to the File Service area. So I can click Files, and we can now begin to create simple file shares. So this is a file share that we're going to use for administrators to share scripts. So as they build little automation scripts, PowerShell, Linux shell scripts, whatever it might be, they store them all here, and it gives them a place where they can share the scripts back and forth in a common location across multiple platforms. We'll give it a 1 GB quota. These are scripts, they're not going to be that big. And that's it. The file share is now created. So how do we access the file share? Well, if I click on this, you can actually upload files directly. So I can click here and I can say, well, we're going to upload a script file. Let's go in here and browse, and well, I've got a video. Let's just upload this video. Maybe this is a little instructional video. And so we can upload this to the file share. It takes just a second. We can access it from here. I can add a new directory called VM scripts. Let's take this space out. Not a fan of spaces in folder names. And begin to manipulate the contents this way. So you've got a basic Windows Explorer style interface. I can also take a snapshot, which will create a snapshot of the contents of the share at a particular time. So I can use this to revert previous versions, etc., things of that nature. So how do I now, from a remote system, begin to manipulate this file share as if I would traditionally access a file share? Well, it's pretty straightforward. So I click the connect button, and it gives me 3 different essentially commands that I can run to map a drive or a mount point to this file share. We'll start with the 2 for Windows. There's a PowerShell command you can run, which is pretty straightforward. You just copy and paste this code directly into PowerShell, and you're set to go. And what it'll do is it'll actually map your Z drive by default. You can change this value as Z right here and get a different one. Or we can do a netuse command from a Windows command line. So we're going to do that one. And we're going to paste this right in. Change to my C drive. Paste this command right in. Mounts my Z drive. And you can see the contents of that file share. Now, what's worth pointing out is that the username password values that are supplied. So here's the, let me just increase my font size a little bit. So the username is actually the name of the storage account, Azure/the storage account name. And this value right here is the primary storage account key. So if you're ever wondering what that password is, you can come back to your storage account, go to your access keys, and that primary key 1 is the password that you're going to use. Now we're going to talk about storage keys in a later section, but should you need to change those keys, understand that your drive mappings to Azure file shares will probably break because the password they use is based on this key. So if the key changes, the password's changed, the password's wrong, you've got to update your connection to that file share. Back to my file shares. And let's look at how we connect a Linux-based system to that same file share. So go connect, and we can grab this Linux command down here. So this is just a Linux mount command. So we'll copy that, and I've got a copy of Linux running. Again, let's just make this font a little bigger. And so I'm going to make a directory. Call this one Cloud Scripts. So there's the directory. And what we're going to do now is actually put the command into, that's our Windows command. That's not going to work on Linux. I will just run the command, let it fail. Go copy our Linux command. And I just need to come back and adjust the mount point value. You can see it right here. We call that Cloud Scripts. Change to that folder. and you can see the script file. So I've got my VM scripts directory, and I've got that video file that I uploaded. So it's that simple. So now I've got a connection from a Windows machine, I've got a connection from a Linux machine, and we've also got a way to go through the Azure portal. Just because I did these in the command line, by the way, they work fine through Windows Explorer or through any other graphical file browser tool that you might have on Windows, Linux, or on a Mac. The Linux version is how you would work with a Mac. Now, there's one large caveat to the Linux version, and it comes from reading this little bit of text at the bottom. You can't take just any Linux system and connect it to an Azure share. You can only connect to the Azure share from a Linux system that is running in Azure in the same region as the file share because of the levels of encryption that are supported. So that's a huge caveat. So if you have Linux machines running in Azure, then you can connect those to these file shares. If you're connecting from outside of Azure, it's limited to Windows at the time being because Linux doesn't support the levels of encryption that Azure requires. So there you have it, an Azure file share. Deleting it, as you can imagine, is pretty straightforward. Type the name of the share, and it's gone. So there you have it. Azure files and accessing Azure files using file sharing tools.